Can anyone be a medium?
I believe that all of us have the ability to connect with the spirit world. What you have to have, probably two things. One of those is an open-mindedness about the entire prospect, the whole idea of communicating with the spirit world. You have to believe that the soul exists outside of the body, that it always has and that it always will. When my cousin passed away, she lay on her deathbed, literally, and I was holding on to her arm. And the moment she passed, I knew, because I felt the energy of her soul come up my arm and out my shoulder. It's the only time I've ever felt that happen. And it was just before I started doing mediumship when this happened. And so that was sort of added on to all of the other experiences I'd had. So at that moment, it was like, wow, I just literally felt a soul leave a body. And so the next thing you have to believe is that the soul remembers everything that the body went through. That our human brain is simply one type of memory bank that dies when the body dies. But the soul is actually the backup memory. And it remembers all of the lifetimes it's ever been in and all of the bodies it's ever inhabited. So that's the second thing you have to understand and be open to. The third thing, I think, if you really want to do this as a job and do it as work, is that you probably have to have made some sort of pre-life agreement to do this work. To say, I want to work with Spirit, I want to work for God, I want to help people in their grief, I want to help heal those wounds, and I want to help people understand and explain maybe what they cannot see. Because I think that is the hardest thing of all, is when you lose a loved one, you can't see them anymore. And you can't touch them, you can't hug them, they're not there, but they actually are there. And I can prove it. And so I think that's how I help people, is I channel their late boyfriend, and their late boyfriend tells me what they had for dinner that night. And then I tell them, oh, he just said you ate Mexican, and then they flip out and start crying because they know they just had Mexican. And then all of a sudden they believe in something that they didn't understand before. And they know that when they're driving down the road listening to their loved one's favorite music, or whatever it is, or they see the butterfly that their loved one promised them they would send, then they have something to hold on to, and it starts to heal that wound that the grief created. That's what I believe that I agreed to do. And so you start with that agreement, and then you have to go through your own life and open yourself up to all of the other parts of that journey until you get there, and then all of a sudden it clicks and it makes sense, and you're like, oh, this is what I was meant to do.